Hello, folks. This is Joe from My Geek Scene, and I'm here at a secret location with Grand Rapids' own Dragon Ball scholar, and I would say probably one of the most thorough Dragon Ball scholars, Derek Padula. Derek, how are you doing today?
Hey Joe, doing great.
Nice, nice. Now, as I mentioned, he's a Dragon Ball scholar. Derek, would you care? I mean, and you've also an author, so you've wrote quite a lot of books, and that's one of the main reasons as to why I'm here. So please, tell us about your books.
I have written 9 nonfiction books about Dragon Ball that explore the culture, the history, and the fandom of Dragon Ball. Starting with Akira Toriyama's life story, going all through DBZ, Goku, and Vegeta and their inner psychologies and why they are the greatest rivals in anime history. And I like to explore the language, the 5,000 years of history that went into Dragon Ball that inspired it, and what it means to the fans across the world.
Okay. And let me see. What was Over 9,000 about?
That was my first book. Dragon Ball Z gets over 9,000 when worldviews collide. It's all about Goku and Vegeta and why they are such influential rivals on not only in DBZ but on the anime scene and across fans. For fans across the world, why they had such a big impact on their lives. And so I explore their childhoods, their father figures, what makes them tick, and go deep into their mindset and show you that pivotal moment when Goku fights Vegeta for the first time, and he looks at the scouter and it says it's over 9,000 and he crushes it, which became this big meme, of course. That's actually a huge transformational moment in Vegeta's life as well as Goku's life, because he learns that he's a Saiyan for the first time from Vegeta, and he learns what the Ozaru is, that great ape. He learns who he really is. And so then Goku starts to become more in tune with his Saiyan roots, and Vegeta has to overcome his deep-seated childhood problems as a result of Frieza killing his father and then becoming his adoptive father and making him a homicidal maniac, basically, murder for hire. And then Vegeta slowly starts to become more sensitive and compassionate and ends up marrying an Earthling and starting a family and falling in love with, the planet and wants to save it, which we see in Dragon Ball Super when he does these things for Beerus, humbling himself before this god of destruction. And so that all starts in that over 9,000 moment, and that's what the book's about.
Okay. I bought a book off of you last year called Dragon Soul. What is that book about?
Yeah, Dragon Soul 30 Years of Dragon Ball Fandom features 108 stories from fans across the world as well as professionals who created Dragon Ball. And it shows you just how powerful Dragon Ball is, not just as a form of pop culture that we get to get some entertainment out of, but really how it affects our lives and inspires us to be better people. There's a lot of stories in there, people who were picked on at school and they were depressed, but they looked to DBZ as a source of inspiration to persevere through those hardships. And there's never been a book dedicated to the fandom of an anime until Dragon Soul. And I felt like DBZ is the series that changed anime as we know it. Every country that DBZ shows up in, it's a success. And in many cases, it establishes the entire anime industry in that country, such as Spain and France and Brazil. And in America, it made Toonami a household name.
Oh, for sure.
That's where most people found DBZ. But the cool thing about the book is you see that it's a universal story. The people all over the planet have fallen in love with DBZ, and then they've taken it into their hearts. And they've used it as a moral guide. They've used it to go to the gym and get huge, or to become artists, to become cosplayers. It's really a series that changes people's lives for the better. And so I wanted to put that in writing. I wanted to prove it to people because I heard so many stories over the years of doing this. And I wanted to show people that this is a series worthy of your respect.
So do you have any, were there any particular stories that resonated with you the most from that book?
Yeah, there was one, a lady in Mexico. Her husband cheated on her, and then her father died, and she was left with her son, and she was an emotional wreck. And her son was watching the History of Trunks, where Gohan has lost his father, and he has to take care of Trunks. And she saw parallels between that and her life. and she realized now I have to be like that for my son. And then she had never seen really DBZ before, taking the time to watch it. And after that, she became obsessed with it, and she started following the voice actors on social media and going to conventions, and now she wears a bracelet that was a gift from one of the voice actors, and it reminds her to just always have that spirit in mind. And I mean, there's so many stories, people talking about how Goku made a difference in their lives, or Vegeta, or Gohan and Trunks and Piccolo. Every character, there's someone out there who resonates with them. For me, when I was a teenager, it was Krillin.
Okay.
Because he inspired me to do Shaolin Kung Fu. And I thought Krillin is not as strong as the other characters. He's not as tall. He's not as physically capable, but he's got the heart for it. And he's got endurance. And he keeps fighting even when he's at a disadvantage. And I feel like that's a really important principle in life.
Isn't he still the strongest human?
Yes. Very debatable. Everybody argues it's Tenshin Han. It could actually be Yamcha at certain points in the story, but
when he's not in a crater.
Right. Yeah.
No, okay. Now I do want to dive into more about you. I mean, because you've wrote, because obviously I'll be interlacing Dragon Ball throughout this interview, but since you are an author, do you have any influential writers?
You mean that influenced me?
Yes. Well, maybe besides Toriyama-san, but
yeah, of course, Toriyama's work had a big influence on me, but no, not really. I don't read too much fiction because I write nonfiction, and I tend to just read nonfiction works. I love to learn, so I can't really think of any authors whose names stand out in that regard.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. What have been some of your best because obviously you've talked to a lot of voice actors from the Dragon Ball series dubbed, and you've met a few of the original Seiyu as well. So best interactions that you've had with the voice actors from the Dragon Ball series.
Well, I loved meeting Masako Nozawa. That was a real treat. That was at the 2012 Animazement convention in Raleigh, North Carolina, and that was her first North American visit, and I was right there in the front row.
Nice.
And yeah, it was such a treat, and I got to speak with her, and she agreed to write the foreword to an upcoming book that I'm writing called The Way of Goku. It's all about how to be more Goku-like in real life and how to tap into your hidden potential and become your best self. And as soon as I showed her the cover art for it, she said, "Oh, yes, I'd love to write the foreword to that." So that was a real treat.
So, and you've met Chris Sabbat.
Yes, several times.
Has he pranked you?
He did not prank me, but after the Kamehacon this May, I met him at the convention, and he said, "Oh, how about you come down to Funimation, and I'll give you a tour, and then you can see me do some voice acting, and it'll be good for your writing." And I said, "That sounds fantastic." So that was Saturday night at a dinner. Monday, I show up at Funimation at the time he told me to come. I think it was like at 2. And he's like, "Dude, I totally forgot." I completely forgot. I'm like, "It was 2 days ago." He's like, "Yeah, but that's normal time. In Kamehacon time, it was like years ago." And I'm like, "All right, fine." He's like, "Don't worry, though. We can still do all the stuff, and I'll take you around." And that was really nice because I'd never been to Funimation before.
Man, I'm so jealous of you, dude. I've interviewed a lot of their staff. I would like to take a tour of that. But as you were saying, you've never been to Funimation before.
No, it's a much larger building than I realized. It's a huge facility, and they have all these different recording booths, lots of very talented staff and producers there. And it's just, there's anime stuff all over the place. There's so much swag and memorabilia, and they've got trophies from all their awards that they've won. It's just a cool place.
I would like to have another crack at Sabbat because I'm definitely a better interviewer than when I first interviewed him. The interview I did with him that you watched, thank you for watching that. It wasn't bad, but I'm leagues better. I've leveled up, since 2015. But it is funny that on camera he was trying to get me to propose to my girlfriend.
Yeah, that was funny.
I was like, oh.
He's a silly guy.
You should hear about some of the things he's done to voice actors.
Oh, I've heard, yeah.
Oh.
But he also does really cool things for the community. Like at the Kamehacon, he emceed a wedding.
Nice.
Yeah, people were dressed up as Vegeta and Bulma, and then he did the voice of Vegeta as to officiate the wedding, and it was done right in front of a giant Saiyan space pod, like a life-size
Wow.
space pod. So it was a cool event, and the crowd was just surrounding him. Hundreds of people, and they just went crazy. So
Nice.
that was a nice thing for him to do.
So, do you have a favorite song or songs from the Dragon Ball soundtracks?
Well, I tend to watch the Japanese more than I do the American original dub with the Faulkner Productions music. And I guess I just love all of it. I don't know if I can pick a particular one. Obviously, the theme songs, Chala Head Chala, We Were Angels, they stand out. Piccolo's theme comes to mind, like dun 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 dun.
Forgive me, because I'm at like, since my main exposure to Dragon Ball, mainly Dragon Ball Z, was through obviously American dubs and stuff like that. So one of the songs that I like was like Hell's Bells for Vegeta,
Right?
Because I think it's weird because like when a song includes those sort of bells, it's like, man, this feels really powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, another example of that with like a song with bells is this one song from Attack on Titan, and I was just like, oh, it's just
Gets you going.
oh it like, actually just talking about it gets like the hair standing up on my arms, because of like, it was like a very sad moment. Like Eren Yeager's mom dies, and then he's like vowing revenge, and you just hear these bells in the background.
Yeah, right. Well, we associate our emotions with that scene and that time of our lives, and then that carries with us forever in our memories. So when we hear that music again, it brings it all back.
Oh, for
and
sure,
it
dude.
means a lot. And I know everybody who grew up watching American DBZ with the Faulconer score has their favorite tracks. And people told me they go to the gym, they put Faulconer music on, they just pump it out, and it gets them psyched to hit that next level of their push, whatever they're trying to do.
Okay, now you've already mentioned it earlier, but thoughts on Dragon Ball Super?
I love that it's back. I don't like it as much as the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, because I think Toriyama's original work, based on the manga, that he created, that has so much more culture in it. It's much more rich. Like when I go through the series in my Dragon Ball Culture series of books, I go through every single panel of every page, and there's always something to talk about. With Super, there can be long stretches where there's not much new content to discuss in terms of culture, but I love the silliness. I love the slice of life content in Super, and it's great to just be back. And Dragon Ball is back in the mainstream. People are talking about it, and they got a new movie coming out with Broly, and it's alive and well. And I think this is a great time to be a Dragon Ball fan.
What about your thoughts on Super Dragon Ball Heroes?
It's cool. Yeah,
I haven't seen it, so I have
okay.
nothing.
Well, it's they put out more of this type of content, as much as they can, because it keeps making money. Dragon Ball is one of the biggest franchises in Japan and the world, and Bandai Namco and Toei, they love to just come up with these spin-offs, and then they got the arcade games and all this other stuff. And it's sometimes if you watch it and you're like a purist, you're going to be like, I can't believe they just turned Broly into Super Saiyan 4, and they got Gohan. So they just keep coming up with different things. But it's more Dragon Ball content, and it's fun.
Oh, well, then that begs the question, though, for like, what are your thoughts on the criticisms of the main criticism of Dragon Ball, the series, being a milked franchise, especially like with, all right, so you had like, all right, I get it. You had the Ocean dub, that's one thing, and then we had the Funimation dub,
Right.
and then what was it, the orange and blue bricks,
Yep.
and then there was the Dragon Ball box sets, and now we're on to Kai
Yeah.
and stuff like that. What are your thoughts
And
on
they
that?
keep coming. They'll come out with another one, I'm sure. And there were the Blu-ray level sets.
Yes. Oh yeah, I forgot that too. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's throw out Blu-ray, because I was
Yeah.
like, oh man.
Well,
this-
how do I feel about it? I
Yeah.
mean, it's a business, so they're trying to make money and increase their profits every quarter, and people keep buying DBZ, and they keep buying it for a reason. It's a great series. I wish that they would come out with a definitive Blu-ray perfect set with the absolute best color correction and the original Japanese audio, which I have. I'm one of the few people. There's like 4 people in the world who has the original Japanese audio, and I have it because other fans have given it to me because Chris Sabbat said he wanted it. I spent, I think it was like 7 years of my life trying to track this audio down, and I told Toei, I've got it, and they're like, well, we don't care. And I told Funimation, and they're like, if Toei doesn't care, we don't care. I told Sab, and he's like, I want it. Give it to me. You know, he's an audiophile, and he loves it. And so I sent it to him. He's like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. And it's just a matter of getting Funimation and Toei to work together on a business level to include the original Japanese audio on the next release. And it's the broadcast audio, which means what originally aired on TV in Japan when it first aired. And this is something that was lost to time. If you listen to the Japanese audio on the DVDs that are out, it sounds really garbled, like it was recorded in a bathtub or something. And the broadcast audio is crystal clear. So the fans who really love the original Japanese have been wanting this broadcast audio for years. And now I have it, but I can't do anything with it because I don't own it. And now Sabbat's got it, but Funimation and Toei don't really seem to realize the opportunity that they've got here. So if they used it, they could release yet again another edition of DBZ and Dragon Ball, and people would buy it all over again because it's got a better quality. So they're just going to, I hope they do another one. But at the same time, I realize that's yet another edition that you'd have to buy.
One and done. That's the way I look at it. Just give me a one and done. You
Yeah.
know, that with all the options though.
Sure. Yeah,
Like you said,
you want the definitive edition, especially if you're going to spend a lot of money on it.
I'm glad you're not doing that with your books though. You know.
Oh, no.
You know, it's like.
No, I work really hard to make sure that it is as thorough and complete as it can be before I publish it.
And that's what I appreciate about you. You know, I mean, you're clearly passionate about it, and you're not just like, I mean, yes, you want people to buy your books, but you're not like, hey, I'm shilling this left and right, you know,
no.
snake oil salesman. So
No,
I do
yeah.
appreciate that about you.
Well, thank you.
Hence me doing an interview with you. If I felt that this was just going to be like a business pitch for your books, I'd have been like,
Oh, no.
nah, I'm not really interested.
Yeah, my main focus is always on the fans because I am a fan. And I'm not just writing this from an outside, you know, cold-hearted analytical perspective. Like, I grew up with the series, and I know how fans think and what they want to see and what they want to read about. And I wrote these books because I wanted to know more about DBZ. And when I went and I looked for cultural content about the series, there was nobody talking about it. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And now I've been doing it for 15 years. And it has been a lifelong project that started when I was 14 and I first saw Goku fighting Raditz on Toonami. And since then, my whole life's been changed.
That was my first exposure to Dragon Ball Z was on Toonami.
Yeah.
Although it was funny, like my friends, the McKays, they were like telling me all about Dragon Ball, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, you know. And then like years later, when I saw it on Toonami, I was like, oh, because looking back on it, they had spoiled everything. They were like, yeah, they like all these Dragon Balls, and then they turned Super Saiyan. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So thoughts on Team 4-Star?
They're cool guys. I've met them in person several times at Youmacon.
Met them once.
Yeah. Yeah, they're nice. They do good work. They're very talented writers and editors, and they even do their own animation and graphics sometimes to fill in the pieces or make a joke, whatever they want to do. And I want to write a book about them.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, and they said that they were interested in me writing it. It's just a matter of getting it all worked out. They are controversial in the voice acting community because they make so much money doing what they do as a parody that some of them say, wow, they're more successful than I am, and I'm an official voice actor and on the actual show. And so they've had a long road where they have to gain legitimacy in their eyes. And now they go on to panels where all of them are sitting next to one another. You know, the American voice actors and the Team 4-Star actors, and they can riff off of one another, and they do the voices and have fun with it. And it started off just as a fan project because they were fans of DBZ and they were inspired by it like so many others. And I think it's absolutely incredible what they've accomplished. And now through Chris Sabbat's help, they're actually showing up in the official series in Kai. And there was a controversy surrounding that too. With a scene that they did ended up getting cut, which was a real shame. For the Cell games reenactment, where everybody's wearing the funny heads, and they're talking about what happened in the Cell games. That got cut, even though they had already recorded it. And so there's a lot going on there, a lot of layers. You know, they're fans, but they're also professionals, and they're so interwoven with the DBZ community. And also, they have become the introduction to the series for so many other fans who did not grow up with DBZ in the late 90s and early 2000s. They see DBZ, or, you know, Team 4 Star's Dragon Ball Z Abridged, and they think that is the show. And those voices in their heads are what they think of when they think of Goku and Vegeta. And it's like whatever was imprinted on their minds at that age, it has now stuck with them. And so then they go back and they watch the actual show, and it's an experience that gets layered on top of their original Team 4 Star experience. And so that's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really watched a lot of Team 4 Star stuff or Dragon Ball Abridged, but I did catch like a scene from Super, I think, when Trunks pulled out his sword and it was like actually flashing and stuff like that. And they had spliced in the music from G Gundam when Domo Kashu was like, "This finger is burning red," you know,
Right.
and it tells me to. When they actually referenced that and they had the actual music, I was like, I had to die laughing because not literally, folks, but I was like, this is so great. I love this reference to a very campy Gundam series. From
Yeah, they're very good at pulling in pop culture references from all different sources and making something that really gets you to laugh out loud.
Okay, so on to the next subject. What other anime series do you like? I know you like Naruto,
I do, yeah.
but is there anything else?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, all the shonens, of course, the big ones. Although, as controversial as this might sound, I'm not a big fan of One Piece. I just can't get past the art style.
Just turning off the microphone and just leaving. How dare you, sir?
I know. And it's inspired by Dragon Ball, and it has the spirit of Dragon Ball in it, but the art style in the manga, I can't get into it. And
That's
I feel
fair.
like in the anime, they're constantly screaming, which sounds odd coming from a DBZ fan because it's known for screaming. But I've tried to watch it 3 times, and after several episodes, all 3 times, I'm just like, I can't.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. I like One Piece, but I'm not going to hold it against you. How dare you like something different from me? You
Right.
know, I can respectfully disagree.
Okay.
You know,
I also like, there's this cool show on Netflix I watched. It's called All the Noah Zero.
I've seen that in the Netflix listings, but I've not watched
It's
it.
good. It's kind of like Gundam, but it's new and it's different. So you get something fresh. And the animation's top notch. The voice acting is great. The music's excellent. But the writing is what really shines out to me. Every episode ends on a cliffhanger, and you're just like, what? I cannot believe that just happened. And it makes you want to watch the next one. So I think it's a series that's worth watching. Let's see, what else do I like? I mean, I do love the culture in Naruto. I love to write a book, Naruto culture.
That's one of my questions.
Oh, it's only okay. Let's see. I mean, there's just so many. It's like one that really stands out is Record of Lodoss War.
Okay.
And it's an old school one, but I like that. Vampire Hunter D is one I used to rent from Blockbuster when I was younger.
The original or Bloodlust?
I think it was the original. I like the art style. I think it's cool. It was Yoshitaka Amano who does Final Fantasy. Yeah. So which is why I got into it, because I loved Final Fantasy growing up. My favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy VI, which is Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo. And that game changed my life. I like to play the piano, and I've been teaching myself how to play Final Fantasy music. So this is one of those things that, like DBZ, has stayed with me my whole life.
That's also one of my questions.
Okay.
too. I've done my research on
Yeah,
you.
you sure have.
So you mentioned that you might do a Naruto culture book.
Yeah.
Why?
Because there's so much culture there. Naruto is a fusion of traditional Japanese culture with sort of this steampunky Western culture, and like also like advanced sci-fi electrical gear sometimes, where people like fly through the air on these contraptions and things, these ninja. And there's so much to discuss. The Shinto aspects of it, the kami, the names of Ichigos, the Uchiha techniques, all of the Uchihas, including the Sharingan, the Amaterasu, all their techniques are inspired by Shinto culture and that religion from Japan. So not everybody knows that. My favorite character, or my favorite villain in Naruto is Pain.
Okay.
And he's inspired by the 6 realms of reincarnation from Buddhism, as well as his eye, the Rinnegan, which has 6 circles in it. And so each one of those 6 realms are a different type of manifestation of a corporeal body. And that's why he has 6 bodies. And then Naruto fighting against that and overcoming that is sort of him overcoming the idea of life and death and reincarnation, which takes him to another spiritual level. And then after that, he ends up meeting the Sage of the 6 Paths. And so there's this whole spiritual arc to Naruto beyond just the action and the fighting and the silly perverted humor, which is a lot of inspired by Dragon Ball, especially with Jiraiya being inspired by Roshi. And he's the frog hermit, or Roshi's the turtle hermit. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And it's just all so worthy of exploration and discussion. And nobody's doing that. And I feel like that's a lot of untapped potential.
Okay. I mean, I own the entire manga series. Like, I bought the 3 massive box sets. So, and I've been working my way through the anime as well. I have a few of the soundtracks too. But I mean, because I thought Jiraiya was based off of Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru were based off like I think 3 characters from Japanese folklore, like Jiraiya with the frog, Tsunade with the slugs, and then Orochimaru with the snakes and stuff
That's
like
right.
that. Because I figured, because I have seen that those 3 characters, not necessarily going by that name in Muramasa the Demon Blade, which was
I haven't seen that.
it was a game that came out on the Wii originally, and then they re-released it for the PlayStation Vita. Muramasa the Demon Blade Rebirth, which actually had a better translation, and
I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
and it also had like 4 DLC stories attached to it. And one of the DLC stories actually ended up featuring a character who would become Jiraiya, and there was a Tsunade, and there was like an Orochimaru.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, they're all famous names from Japanese history.
yes.
Likewise, Sasuke. And but you might not have known that the frog, the slug, and the snake are 3 animals in Japanese history that defeat one another.
Yes.
And that's what they used to call their game of rock, paper, scissors. And those, you make different hand signs, and then they would defeat one another, just like we do with rock, paper, scissors. So it goes back along, and that comes from China, by the way, during the Tang Dynasty. So there's a lot of culture there, and I think it's things that like will give you a new perspective on Naruto, and make you look at it in a new way, and it will enrich your appreciation for the series.
No, for sure. So you mentioned that Pain was one of your favorite characters. Any other favorite characters from the series?
Well, as cliche as it is, I like Naruto, of course.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, yeah. People say he's silly and goofy, but I like that because the creator, Kishimoto, said, I wanted to create a ninja that was unlike your typical ninja. So rather than being a person cloaked in, shadows and sneaking around, he would be bright and eccentric and right up in your face, and he would just point his finger at you and say, I'm taking you down, and I'm going to persevere through all of this because that's my ninja way. And I feel like that's so inspirational. And I know that Naruto has changed people's lives just like Goku has, because I've met them at conventions, people who cosplay as Naruto, and they tell me, like, yeah, without that, I wouldn't be who I am today, and it helped me get through high school, and it's a life-changing series. So that series is also worthy of a book.
For sure. So have you watched the anime?
Oh, yeah, I've watched the entire thing. I watched it all with my dad, actually, episode by episode.
Even all the filler?
We watched a portion of it, but then we just got it's too much.
Yeah, dude. Because there was like a website that I found, like I think animefiller.org.
Yeah, it shows the guide.
I was like, all right,
yeah.
I'll skip all those.
It's like over 100 episodes of filler. So we skipped to that to Shippuden episode 1. But then they started putting filler in that too.
Yeah, for sure.
So you need that filler guide to skip past.
So which series did you feel was better? The original series? I'm referring to anime.
Okay.
Original series or Shippuden?
I feel like the original had less filler, so until you get to that big block. So I feel like it's more true to the manga. Um, but I like the growth and the way that Naruto changes in Shippuden, and there's a spiritual aspect, an inspirational aspect, and I love how it all just wraps up and closes. Now, actually, I prefer the ending in the manga than I do the ending in the anime, but I love that in the manga it ends exactly at chapter 700, and it just comes full circle. And I think Kishimoto's writing is incredible. Like Toriyama, they're viewed as illustrators, but I think they should also be viewed as talented writers.
Yeah.
Because they have to write and draw it themselves. And yes, they have editors helping shape that vision, but they have to come up with all this stuff. And their talent is so phenomenal that it would be a disservice just to look at them as illustrators. There's so much heart and spirit that goes into it, and life lessons, and how to be a better person, how to endure hardship, and how to take hardship as joy. That's one of the things that Goku does is he looks at difficulties and he says, that's a great opportunity for me to improve myself and to become a better person. And I think that's an attitude that if we all adopted, this would be a much better world, rather than being afraid and shying away or being told to be afraid of things. We say, that's going to be difficult, and that's why I'm going to do it, because I know it's going to make a difference in the world.
That's actually a really good way of looking at things. So, I wanted to talk about video games.
Sure.
So, you were planning on becoming a video game designer at one point. Why is Final Fantasy VIII one of your favorite games as well? I know you mentioned 6.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so it was always my dream to be a game designer, and that was because of Final Fantasy, the whole series. I just loved them. And as soon as I graduated from Western Michigan University, I drove to Los Angeles. I got a job at Electronic Arts as a game tester. And actually, 2 years prior to that, for the summer, I worked at Activision as a game tester. Mm-hmm. Both of them are located in LA, and those are the two biggest publishers in the United States. And that was awesome. I got to play video games for 9 hours a day, sometimes 12 or 15 if we did overtime during crunch. And I loved it, though. Like, the guys there, during their breaks, they play more video games. So that's like, we all love games, And that was my dream, and I was getting paid to do it. But then I got a job as an actual game designer at a company called 7 Studios, where I made the Sopranos game, where you go around breaking people's arms as you're a mobster and all that. And I wanted to make something that was more meaningful than that. So I created my own studio called Young Forest Games, and I tried to make games that are beneficial to people and society, and nobody bought them because nobody wants those. They want Mortal Kombat. And this company I got a publishing deal for one game, but then it sort of didn't work out because of Microsoft and all these technical problems. And so anyway, I did that, and that was a thing that I did, and it was awesome, and I'd like to do it again. But in the meantime, I'm doing writing, and I guess to answer your question about Final Fantasy, it was the music, it was the emotions, it was the way it spoke to me when I was a young man, and it still appeals to me now. And the music, especially.
The soundtrack's great.
Oh, they're all incredible, and they're all made by one guy. 1 through 10. It's just astounding.
Nobuo Uematsu.
That's right. Yeah, he's an absolute genius. The fact that he can do all of these different genres and they all sound incredible. He's a legend. And I've been to Final Fantasy concerts where they play it in the orchestra. And
same here.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've been to a few. Let me see. Oh my goodness. It was like Final Fantasy Worlds or something like that. Forgive me, folks. I'm gonna have to look it up. I'll put it like on the screen, okay. But I've been to a few Final Fantasy concerts too.
Yeah, they're nice.
Awesome.
Yep. And I like when they put it on the screen and you can see the video and all that. So it's one of those things, and I'm actually teaching myself how to do game design again right now.
Okay.
Because programming was never my strength, so now I'm teaching myself how to do Unity, 3D and 2D programming, so I can bring the game that I created in 2006 back to life for modern platforms, for Steam and Xbox and Switch and PS4, and get it out there. But it's one of those things I do on the side when I'm not writing.
Maybe you can become the next Notch.
Yeah, I mean, if I can get $1 billion for it, that'd be nice. Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. Oh, ugh. I don't know. I was actually having a discussion about like, because we had that huge lotto and stuff like that. And I was
Sure.
just like, I don't know if I would necessarily want that much money, especially in Michigan, since they announce the winners. It's like if I could remain anonymous, yeah, I'd totally be down with that. And I can also help
Yeah.
out a lot of people with that. But if
Sure.
they're announcing your name, you're gonna have to move away
You probably
and stay out of the
yeah.
public light for at least
Yeah.
1
Well,
to 2
what
years.
I realized the very first thing I would do is create a Derek Padula Foundation, and then I would make Michigan a carbon neutral state. So I would put solar panels across the entire state, wind turbines, water, whatever we can do to reduce that global warming impact and make Michigan a place where everybody gets free power for life. Because that would only, I think, if you have over $1 billion, you can make a big impact like that. And it might sound idealistic. I don't know the actual logistics of doing it, but that'd be something I'd love to do.
I mean, it's not a bad dream or a bad idea, so I'm not gonna knock you for that. I mean, like, I don't think anyone, like those who are receiving the free power, are gonna complain about that.
I wouldn't think so.
Those who are already in power of the power, they would have an issue with
they
that.
would.
You know, that's why you would have to disappear so they don't break your legs and you go
Right.
missing.
Yeah.
So, did you have any favorite Dragon Ball video games? I mean, I know you're not really playing a lot of video games since you're too busy focusing on writing.
Yeah.
But like the ones that you have played, thoughts on those?
Well, ones that stand out. As odd as it might sound, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout on the
For the
PS.
PlayStation?
Yeah, that one.
Wow.
Not my personal favorite as then the best game ever, but that's when I first got when I was falling in love with DBZ. And so even though it was terrible, it stood out to me as a memorable game. Ultimate Battle 22, likewise, But then of course the Budokai games and Burst Limit and all that.
So have you tried any Dragon Ball Fighters?
Yeah, a friend of mine has that on PlayStation, and it's awesome. I mean, it's the most true to the series that there's ever been, and I applaud Arc Systems Works for creating a game that stays true to Toriyama's vision, which is what I always want any type of creator who's taking a license to do. Stay true to what made the series popular. I mean, if they had done that with Dragon Ball Evolution, we would love the movie. If they'd stayed true to Toriyama's vision instead of turning it into what they did, it wouldn't be a disaster. It would be one of those movies that we say, you see, live action Dragon Ball is possible. It can be done, which I think we accomplished, myself and the team of producers and directors and actors at Robot Underdog with Dragon Ball Z Light of Hope, which is a live action adaptation of the history of Trunks. I think we proved that it can be done if you stay true to the source material. And that series gave hope to a lot of fans who said it couldn't be done because of Evolution, that it actually can be done.
Okay. Now, I would like to talk about your martial arts background. So you mentioned Shaolin Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
What style of Kung Fu? Because like when people say to me Shaolin Kung Fu, I'm like, okay, well, what style?
Yeah, right.
Kung Fu. That's an umbrella term for Chinese martial arts and hard
Yeah.
work. What style?
Well, I learned Kung Fu at Chan's Kung Fu on Division here in Grand Rapids. And he teaches both Northern and Southern Kung Fu, but the style is called Jiao Gar.
Okay.
And so he comes from Hong Kong. So it's a Southern style, but then it incorporates Northern and Southern together. So the first form you learn is Tiger. Then you go on to, I think it's Northern Mantis, Southern Mantis, and there's some weapon forms in there. There's also a sparring form we do with another person. And then I also learned Yang style Tai Chi when I was there. And I taught myself some Qigong styles. Falun Gong was a meditation practice that really changed my life for the better. And I read a lot of books about it. But then I also trained with the Shaolin monks in Beijing. So when I was a junior at Western Michigan University, I studied abroad in Beijing at the Beijing Language and Culture University. And there were some Shaolin monks who had just left the temple and gone to Beijing to establish a new temple. So they put out some flyers at the campus, and I saw that, and I said, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity. I have to go there. And they were looking for foreign students, So to get there, I had to walk a mile to the train station, get on the train, take it to the very last stop, get off the train, get on the bus, take the bus to the very last stop, and then walk a little bit to they don't call it a dojo in Chinese, but the Kwun, and it's basically just an empty courtyard with some brick buildings that they live in. The monks live there, and then they have like this airport hangar that they do martial arts in. They have all these weapons and training equipment, and it was incredible because they wake up before the sun rises, and they meditate, they eat, they train, they eat, they meditate, they train, and then they meditate again, and then they go to sleep. And they do this every single day.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah. And then they go out and they do performances. Like we went to a performance together at the Great Wall of China, just north of Beijing, at this place called Badaling. And they did a demonstration there. It was a great thing to be a part of. And I got my orange robes and all of that. So, and of course I stood out as the white guy in the group, but, and people would stare at me, the Chinese who would be surprised that I could, one, speak Chinese, and two, do Kung Fu. They would always go like, whoa, how is this possible? You know? But it was worth it. And even though it took me about 3 hours to get to the place where I would train. And then after I was a mess and exhausted, I had to take 3 hours back. It was still worth it because that's an opportunity that most people don't get, and it makes for a great story.
Nice, dude. Nice. So what did you learn about yourself through martial arts?
Yeah, that's the cool thing about martial arts is it really teaches you a lot about yourself. I think through pain, through the suffering and through the endurance and perseverance of training, you really learn more about yourself and you gain empathy for others. So if you think of martial arts as just like you're learning how to punch somebody, that's not the right understanding. It's really about how to look within, how to overcome your own demons, and also how to be disciplined and set a goal for yourself and then achieve it. So martial arts taught me all of that. And I like it much more than team sports. I grew up playing soccer and baseball and one season of football. And I didn't like the team mentality where I can do my best, but we'll still lose the game. Or I could be doing bad because I used to have asthma and I would like bring the team down, and that made me feel bad. But with individual athletics, it was all up to me. And if I did well or not, that was on me. So I set the goal and then I achieve it. And it's the same thing I do with my writing. Like, I mean, these books don't come out of nothing, it takes years of effort. So I set these big goals and then I work hard at them every day, and I'll edit 3 pages on this book. I'll write 5 pages there. I'll come back to this one, persevere with it, and eventually it gets done, and then I can publish it. And it's one of those things that you're going to be in it for the long haul. So I think martial arts it's a lifelong practice, and it's on the one hand it's about the techniques and it's about improving your body and changing your physique, but on the other hand it's what I think is more important is changing your mind and unifying the mind, body, spirit together so that you can make a positive impact in the world.
I would agree with you on that one. I haven't obviously, since I've put on some weight, I've been a little bit lazy, but like as I mentioned to you, I do Tai Chi Praying Mantis Kung Fu under Sifu Lee downtown as well. Okay. Yes, folks, I'm based out of Grand Rapids if you haven't figured it out yet. But like my Sifu just wants us to be good people. So he doesn't want us really getting into fights unless we absolutely have to defend ourselves. So if someone came to like our class, our school, and was like, yeah, I want to learn how to do techniques to beat up people, he won't teach you to squat. He'll have you just do drills up and down until you leave. He won't teach you anything. He's got a good sense of like when people are coming in, like what type of person this will be. Same thing with like my top instructors, Rick and John, and Tracy too, and Mark.
Well, so what got you into the martial arts?
Like, oh, geez, I didn't think I was going to be interviewed here. No, when I was young, I've always just had a fascination with like Japanese and Chinese culture. I mean, like I watched martial arts films, karate and kung fu. And I always just thought kung fu was like the coolest. And like I think like in middle school, did karate for a while. I don't know what style, dude, so forgive me, I couldn't tell you. And it was just, I thought that was cool, but then it just got out of it. And then it was after high school. I was working at an adult foster care place, and my then friend, Ben, was like, dude, we're doing Tai Chi. And I'm like, Tai Chi,
Yeah.
old man in the park
Yeah,
stuff. I was like,
right.
I'm not really interested in that, dude.
Well, it's so opposite of karate too, you know.
Yeah. And then he was just going on and on about it, like over the months. He's like, no, dude, we're like learning this crazy Tai Chi. And I'm like, what? It's like, you're out of your mind. And like, he just said that, and it like imprinted into my, onto my mind. And I just kept thinking about it like over months, and it was just messing with me. I was like, dude, I'm not doing anything. I might as well go check out a class. So, I want to say 12 years ago, it was like, I went the first week of January, watched the class, showed up the next week,
Right.
and went ever since. Now, ever since I started up my geek scene, unfortunately, my martial arts practices fell by the
Yeah,
wayside
I
since
know
I've
how
been
that
focusing
goes.
on this. I've put on weight, and it's just like, this is ridiculous. So I would probably need I would need like at least a solid 6 months to get back into like actual athletic shape
Okay.
to be able to do stuff. I mean, I've enjoyed it, and yes, I'm not really one for like, oh man, I gotta go work out, but like actually, I would feel better after class and stuff like that,
Right.
and like the friendships that I've formed throughout the years, and just being able to do. It's not like it's necessarily an appealing thing for me, but being able to do something that not a lot of people either know about or are doing themselves. I think that's pretty cool. Because yes, we've also had some qigong exercises in our class, especially for the Tai Chi stuff, like breathing exercises.
Right.
And then like for the actual Kung Fu portion, we have like iron shirt class.
Oh, do you?
Oh God.
He just beat on you?
Well, controlled beating.
Okay.
Like, it was like 3 times a week getting hit with punches and sticks,
Yeah.
you know, and bowling pins. And then,
Wow. Okay.
but it was obviously no malicious intent. It was just
Yeah,
supposed
no.
to build up an internal energy.
I
to-
actually like the pain. It's which sounds masochistic, but I'm not a masochist. But it's like it releases a lot of endorphins and it just feels good because it reminds me of DBZ, especially when I was younger and training. We would beat each other we would stand there in front of one another. We'd kick one another's legs on the calves and the thighs, and then we go to the midsection and then the upper arm, and you got bruises all up and down, but you come away with it like there's this exhilarating feeling, and it makes you feel like you're tough and invincible. Like not like I can be thrown through a mountain like Goku and come out just fine, but it gives you a little bit of that feeling of what he must feel like.
Oh, I mean, like like in our class, we do arm and leg training, like actually during the class, and then like if you wanted to progress further, they would ask you they would give you additional exercises that you can do at home to like, you know, build up your arms and
Right.
like your shins and stuff like that, and your calves for sure. But no, I mean, I just enjoy Kung Fu and the athleticism behind it. Certainly, I was never a meathead before class. I'm certainly not going to be one now. It's just I've never came in like, yeah, I'm going to be Mr. Billy Badass. So like that is such a huge turnoff for me whenever I'm seeing people like talking about how tough they are. I'm like, people that are like legitimately tough and know that they can wreck a person, most of the time they're not going to talk about that. They're not going to brag about what they can do to somebody.
Right.
It's just like, for me, my martial arts way is just to be a good person and protect those.
Well, yeah, that's what it's really about. I mean, when I'm writing The Way of Goku, I recommend that people do martial arts because it's going to teach them a lot about themselves
Agree.
and other people as well. But yeah, it's not about hurting people. It's about being a good person. So the mental aspects is much more important, but it's through the martial arts, which is a physical act, that you gain a deeper awareness of yourself. And that's, I think, the real heart of martial arts. It's the way, just like Bruce Lee talked about, the Tao or the Tao. And if you can find that, if you can find a practice that works for you, that can help you deepen your own understanding of yourself, stick with it, keep doing it, because that's the most important thing in life.
I would agree. So, since you're a practitioner of traditional martial arts, my goodness, what are your thoughts on MMA?
I think it's cool. I got no problems with it. It's a very commercialized sport at this point, and it's a big business. There are people who, in the DBZ community as well, who have done traditional martial arts, and then they transition to MMA, and then they say traditional martial arts are garbage, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And actually, they create a parallel with DBZ, and they say back in the beginning, Dragon Ball, the original one, was very rooted in traditional martial arts concepts, because Toriyama was so inspired by Hong Kong Kung Fu films by Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. and even Roshi's moniker is Jackie Chun. He dresses up as the old man. So a lot of homages there. But they've got deep stances, and they're doing all kinds of traditional movements. But then as it advances into the DBZ era and they start flying, they don't do as many deep stances, and they're much more fluid and bouncing around all over the place. And it's kind of MMA-ish. So you could just say it's the natural evolution of martial arts. The thing I don't like about it, though, is everybody fights kind of the same way, and you don't see unique styles as much. Like if you saw a kung fu guy fighting a karate practitioner, you would know which one was which. You could tell just from a glance. With MMA, everybody sort of has the same stance, and I know there's variations on that, and there's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and there's different techniques, and you can see their teachers and their disciples, and you can see one to the other, which is still great. I just think there's not as much personality and uniqueness among the fighters, which, I guess it doesn't matter so much as long as you win, because that's what it's all about. But that was never what fighting was about for me. So
I take it you didn't have any favorite MMA fighters?
No, not really. I
That's fair.
know some of their names, but I don't follow it that well. Actually, I did interview Marcus Brimage.
I did see that interview on your website.
Yeah, Marcus Brimage is a big Dragon Ball Z fan and a professional MMA fighter. So
And he was on The Ultimate Fighter. I remember that.
yeah, and he got inspired by DBZ to become an MMA fighter exactly because of that. And he trains like Goku and Vegeta, and it's just a great example of how DBZ changes people's lives.
Okay. You were featured in a documentary called Losing North. What was that about?
Oh, that was a long time ago. Yeah, I was much younger then. That was...
I couldn't find anything else besides that brief excerpt.
Yeah, that was the idea of how people are sort of losing their moral compass. It's losing north because the compass always points north.
Yes.
It's just the idea that people are more focused on making money and will do anything to earn a profit, including hurting other people or polluting our planet. And so the premise there was, how do we find north again? How do we find our way? And the director wanted to interview people who seemed to have some sense of where they were headed and what was guiding them. So I was one of the subjects.
Okay. Now, there was something when I was looking over your Facebook profile that made me smile. You mentioned that you love metal. So,
Sure.
Which bands?
Well, I grew up on Pantera.
Nice.
Yeah.
Vulgar display of power. Dude.
Yeah. I would just pump that up as loud as I could, especially when I was learning how to lift, and train in martial arts and all that. I grew up on Metallica too, and now I've transitioned into, I still love guitar, I love the way that they combine that with their voice, but I don't even know the name. It's like it's like techno, but it's not. It's like Carpenter Brute.
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen them.
You have? Oh.
I seen them open up for Ghost a few years ago, and I was like, it was definitely like, man, they're making an 80s soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist. I have their trilogy, all three of their albums.
Whole, like, what they call outrun genre. It's like techno, but from the 80s, but then it's got like this grungy bass and like crunchiness and really cool sound. And I got these new headphones last week, the Lucid Sound LS31s. They're wireless, and they sound so nice. And I'm experiencing the music all over again, like it's brand new. So it's a treat.
That is most excellent. I was not expecting Carpenter Brute to come up in a conversation, but that's awesome, dude.
Well, what I found is that I love any type of music that has technical prowess. So that could be Bach and Beethoven and Chopin to Pantera, or Aerosmith, or anybody who shows a technical prowess, like a mastery of their instruments and their orchestration, from Queen to Styx to Carpenter Brute. So if you've really honed your craft and you're expressing yourself through your music, I can appreciate it.
So let me guess, you're listening to a lot of Yngwie Malmsteen.
He's great.
Baroque and roll.
Yeah, he's great. It's been a long time since I heard him, but he is great.
Oh my goodness. I remember, it's funny because you mentioned Pantera, like when they had their home videos and stuff like that. And so there was a scene where Dimebag's like offering him a donut, like Ingve, and Ingve's like with these two ladies. He's like, I don't like donuts. He's like totally pissed at Dimebag, and I don't even know if he even knew who Dimebag was at the time.
Okay.
But man,
That reminds me. I like Dream Theater too.
Okay, so you like prog metal.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, and they had one. Was it Liquid Ocean Experiment? I know I got the name wrong, but it was after. It was like an addition to Dream Theater, and they got the drummer from Pantera. I want to say
Vinnie Paul.
Yeah, I think.
Well, may
so.
you rest in peace, Vinnie Paul, because that happened early this year.
Yeah, that's a real shame.
So what about Opeth?
I don't know them.
You're not familiar with Opeth? So they started off as a progressive death metal band. So they would also have like death metal vocals and clean singing and beautiful acoustic passages and stuff like that. Opeth is a great band. And now they're more of a 70s prog metal band.
Oh, okay.
With no harsh vocals at all. It's all clean singing.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, I guess I should point out most of what I listen to is actually video game music.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So some of the favorite bands then? Or are you just talking about
composers? Or?
No. Okay, sorry. Do you listen to like bands doing covers, or do you mean like the original compositions?
Mostly the original compositions, but I love video game remix. VGRemix.org is it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean I've been listening to them since high school, so there's thousands of artists there, and they do thousands of songs, and they're all free and just incredible. But yeah, sometimes I'll just throw on the Chrono Cross soundtrack and or Final Fantasy 7 or whatever I feel like, and just listen to it, because I cannot listen to music with lyrics in it, because if I'm writing and editing, I've got the lyrics in my mind, you know. So if other words come in, they push the words that I'm thinking about out of my brain.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, so it's got to be something lyric free, and that's why video game music is perfect, and it can just go on in the background, and for pretty much all day, you know.
All right, then fine. Impromptu question. Favorite video game soundtracks?
Well, of course, all the Final Fantasies, anything by Yasunori Mitsuda, who did Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Xenogears, Xenoblade Chronicles. He does so many others. The guy who did the Ys soundtracks, Streets of Rage, all the Nintendo and Zelda music.
So Streets of Rage 2 was I want to say Yuzo Koshiro.
That sounds right.
Yeah. If you would, can I make a recommendation for I know you're too busy. I mean, you're really busy writing, but there's a fascinating documentary that Red Bull put out a few years ago called "Digging in the Crates," or "Digging in the Carts," because it's about like Japanese composers for video games.
Oh, okay.
So and it is shot. It looks beautiful, and like you're actually getting interviews with like these people that you've heard their soundtracks, but
right, you just don't know them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can send you the link to that.
Sure,
It's a few YouTube videos, but it is well done, and it's a fascinating look into like that world.
Yeah, I love what they were able to create with such limitations.
Yeah, and some of them even go into detail with like how they actually came up with stuff like that, and showed like the original equipment.
Wow.
So that's a cool one.
Yeah.
No, man, I'm a huge fan of like video game music too. Like one of my favorite soundtracks of all time is Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite games. I'd say top 5.
Mine too. That's a top 5 game for me
okay.
too, man.
Wow.
I was legitimately talking about that before I left my girlfriend this morning. Not dumped her, but like I left her house this morning.
Right.
Like, oh, hey, honey, I'm breaking up with you. Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. Figured you want to know that as I'm leaving you forever. But man,
yeah, I watch people play the wood carving partitia.
Okay.
The harpsichord. It's the harpsichord song from the library in Symphony of the Night. And they play that on piano, and I'm just like, that's astounding. And the fact that the composer for that soundtrack was able to create all of these songs.
Michiru Yamane.
Yeah,
Yamane.
that's right.
Sorry.
And just there's so many classic tunes, Vampire Killer, Bloody Tears, all of these songs that have stuck with us for decades, and the Castlevania soundtrack is amazing.
My favorite song from that goes by either two names, Dance of Pails or Waltz of Pearls, however you're approaching it. But it's just like, I really like that.
Yeah, those are my goals for playing piano. Like I if I can play those, I'll know that I've made it.
That's excellent, dude.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna have to start sending you some like covers of video game tunes. There's like a lot of great music out there. Man, I went to this awesome convention earlier this year called MagFest, short for music and gaming, and it's they literally bring in musicians and artists from all over the world to do video game covers or music inspired by video games, and they've even had original composers come over
Oh, that's great.
to perform with either a backup band or a symphony orchestra.
Okay.
So they've had Uematsu-san perform with like the Black Mages.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
like this upcoming year, they will have like, I don't know what his name is off the top of my head, but is the guy who created the Mega Man 2 soundtrack. He's making his first U.S. appearance.
Yeah, there's a Capcom show coming up in Detroit. I think it's this weekend at Youmacon.
Oh, Youmacon is I
Is
want
it
to say next week.
Okay, and so then, but it's a whole Capcom live performance of all the classic Capcom.
Oh, I won't
songs.
be there, so I had no idea.
Yeah,
So.
I'm tempted to go because I like the music so much.
But no, there's a lot of cool stuff, dude.
Yeah.
I don't want to distract you too much from your writing, but I can send
No,
you
it's
some
one of
stuff.
those things I have on the background anyway. So, and it's good to take breaks every once in a while and just dive into what I love so much.
I would recommend one group, the duo Super Guitar Bros. They're actually from Michigan, and they do they're classically trained guitarists.
Okay.
So one does wire steel guitar, steel strings. The other one does nylon strings.
So they do covers of Mario Brothers and other things.
Yes, Sonic the Hedgehog, Castlevania, obviously Chrono Trigger. There's a lot of great music.
Yeah, I got the Chrono Trigger soundtrack being shipped to me right now from Japan.
Nice.
It's the full piano soundtrack for every song in the game. So I'm looking forward to that arriving.
Dude, that's awesome. So, as we're wrapping this up, because this has been really enjoyable, you've been writing Dragon Ball for, was it the last 12 years, or is it now 15
Well, I
years?
started my project in 2003, so it's been 15 years. And yeah, it's been a lifelong thing. Because I started with DBZ when I was 14, and I didn't start officially writing until 2003. And so, yeah, it was pretty much 21 years.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts about your journey so far?
Journey, so my thoughts on my life so far?
Yeah, I mean your journey since you started writing and stuff like that.
It's been good. I'm glad that there's an audience for this. I'm glad that there are other people out there who resonate with what I'm putting out there, and people who say they've been waiting for books like this their whole lives, and are willing to give me money to continue doing what I love. You know, it's one of those things where, like, I gave up a career in video games. I was a website developer for several years. I gave that up as well, and those are high-paying jobs, and I sacrificed that so I could write about a children's cartoon, every day. And that might sound silly on paper, but I had to do it. Like I had to be true to myself, and I felt like it was my calling. So it has been a long and hard road, but I'm glad that I made the choices that I did.
So, thoughts on the future?
Bigger and better. There are a lot of people who read, but I think there are even more people who watch videos. And so I really want to make a big YouTube channel and put the content that I've already written on YouTube and share that with a wider audience. I've been toying around with doing a podcast.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, so I've got a microphone, and I've got also one on my new headset that I got. And I'm formulating it. I'm testing it out. I taught myself how to do Adobe Audition, so I can take the audio, post-process it, and make it sound really nice. And it's a learning process, but there's so much to do and so much I can talk about that it's really a question of narrowing the scope, because otherwise I'm going to be redoing all 15 years, like in podcast form. So I want to create something that is really going to take off. And actually, I think the Way of Goku book and project is what's going to inspire people beyond the intellectual fans who really want to analyze things. It'll inspire people who want to transform themselves. The tagline is "From human to Saiyan in 90 days." So you can really become a different person in that time. And it's kind of like my Tao of Jeet Kune Do, but through DBZ. And so I think it's going to make a big wave.
Excellent, dude. Keep me posted. I've actually been toying around with the idea of doing a podcast, but it's just trying to think of how to do consistent content. That's the problem. Because if you I have a podcast and I put out some sporadically every 3 months, you're not going to really gain any traction.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do photos, I do videos, and I do writing. Writing is like the least of what I do, but it's just like I would like to do a podcast, especially another avenue to put my interviews, because my interviews they're they're designated. I mean, they're designed to be more like podcasts, like I mentioned before the interview. I mean, obviously, to expect someone to sit through and watch an hour of this, just like actually watch it, I'm not going to hold my breath. But they could always put this on in the background and listen to it and enjoy it too, whether off of YouTube or if it was like an MP3.
Right.
So, no, yes, this is going online. It's just like, that would be pointless. You know, oh, we did this interview. Yeah, I'm not releasing it because people aren't going to watch
That's
it.
the other thing, was when you're an independent creator, you have to have discipline and structure. You have to create it yourself. Like if you go to 9-to-5 job, that structure is there for you, and there's penalizing if you don't go at that exact time. So when you're working at home, you got to do all that on your own, and you have to set the goals for yourself, set the structure for yourself, and it's a challenge. Like I could work 7 days a week if I don't, nothing happens, right? So like there's always that push to keep working harder, but then I learned I also got to take breaks and
Oh, I hear you, dude.
pace myself.
Been doing this like be going on 4 years, officially, publicly. But yeah, it's a balance. Trying to balance this with my real full-time job and like my full-time girlfriend, you know, and actually just having time for myself.
Yeah.
You know, my hat's off to you, dude.
Well, thanks.
I always appreciate like the independent creators, you know, and that's the wonderful thing about being an independent creator too, is like you don't answer to anyone but yourself when you're putting out stuff, so you can put it in your true vision, how you see fit.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true. That reminds me, for Dragon Ball Evolution, I received an apology from the writer of Dragon Ball Evolution, and he apologized. I just wanted to interview him for the book that I'm writing about the history of Dragon Ball in America, and he wrote back and said, "I'm sorry, I really dropped the Dragon Ball on that one." And then I'm like, "Do you want me to post that?" And he said, "Yes." And he had this whole thing, and he made a big splash, and my site went viral and all this other stuff. And it was like, that was just me. I did that, you know, that happened. And then like everybody in the Dragon Ball fan community was like, finally, we have some catharsis because somebody responsible for this mess apologized. And now we can feel a little bit better about it. We can put it behind us.
Was it ultimately his fault though? Because there's got to be studio involvement.
Yeah,
too.
that was one of the things. And the director got involved, and the producers, and then the studio. But he fell on the sword, and so people had respect for him for doing that. And he said, from now on, I'm only doing passion projects. I'm only going to do what I really care about the most, and I can respect that.
Excellent. So, final 2 questions. If people wanted to find out more about you online, where could they go?
Well, they go to the Tao of DragonBall.com, and you go on to Twitter at Derek Padula. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, and you can just message me whenever you want.
All right. And what would you like to say to your fans throughout the years?
Thank you for supporting my Dragon Ball writing. I love what I do because of you, and it's very rewarding to receive messages that tell me that you were moved by what I wrote, or you were excited, or you learned something new about Dragon Ball you didn't know was there, and it makes all of the hard work and years of effort worth it. So thank you for being so great.
All right. Well, Derek, thank you for the interview.
Thank you, Joe.
No problem. Well, folks, this is Joe from My Geek Scene here with Derek Padula. Take it easy.